Well, Vikings continues its winning streak, and I believe we're at the halfway point too. I think this is episode 5 out of the 10 episode season. So already we're at the halfway point, and they haven't gotten to Paris yet. I guess they're going to use that as the sort of climax. But this episode, the Vikings returned to Kattegat, or most of them returned to Kattegat. Those who weren't, manning the settlement. And Lagatha learns that her earldom has been usurped by Calf, the person that she trusted above all others in her village. So she asks Ragnar, since I helped you in Wessex, you should help me reclaim my earldom. And Ragnar says, okay, we'll go speak to the guy. So Ragnar speaks to the guy and basically asks him to accompany him to Paris when they invade. But he does not fight for Lagatha's earldom, and his justification for not doing so is, if we get into a civil war, we could potentially lose a lot of guys. A lot of our people could die. Remember what happened last time with Jarlborg, King Horik, and the conflict there. A lot of people, a lot of Vikings kind of bit the dust in that sort of three-way conflict between Horik, Borg, and Ragnar. So his justification is not entirely is somewhat understandable, honestly, but I'll get to that in a second. And in addition, it seems like there is a bit of disagreement going on back in Wessex in terms of the borders of the Viking lands, because the Northmen or the Northmen settlers are coming under attack by some of the Englishmen, and Egbert sends his son along with a battalion of troops to go and settle these disputes. Now, first of all, I was at first a little confused as to why Ragnar would suddenly just drop everything and not help his ex-wife, one of the people whom he has known the longest, one of the people who he presumably cares for the deepest. So I was a little confused on that front. But at the same time, and as a result, Lagatha rides off to who knows where. But at the same time, I'm thinking, Ragnar has never really shown all of his cards. Ragnar is a very smart cookie, as it were. He almost never does something without having a definite plan in mind. We learned that in Season 2 when he single-handedly outsmarted both Jarlborg and King Horik. He actually gathered together these plans to actually... True, they were plans in response to Jarlborg and King Horik's own shortcomings and schemes, but at the same time, Ragnar is a fairly sharp guy. So in choosing not to help Lagatha reclaim her earldom, and in addition, actually asking the guy to accompany him on the raid, I have to assume that he has some sort of plan in mind. Some sort of plan to possibly benefit Lagatha. Maybe he's planning on, Lagatha coming with him to Paris in order to, prove to her villagers that she ought to be Earl instead of Calf, who maybe he hopes to expose as sort of this spineless weakling. I don't know what his plan is, but I'm not going to make any assumptions at this point. And at the same time, Rollo is very sad and very, very angry at his latest loss, that of Siggy, who, as we know, drowned in the previous episode, although it was of her own intention. So Rollo is drunk, he's angry, he goes to the seer and he says, how many losses do I have to endure? Because all my life I've been, second in popularity and really second all my life to my younger brother Ragnar. And I've lost Lagatha to him, I've lost the earldom to him. And Siggy, who was one of my only sources of solace, is now gone. And the seer basically tells him, it's sort of a variation on, hang in there, Rollo, your time will come. I mean, if you could see what I see and what is going to eventually happen to you, then you would dance naked on the beach. And he actually says that you would dance naked on the beach. So that actually has me sort of intrigued, as opposed to, the more pessimistic response that Ragnar got in regards to, will I conquer Paris? But at the end of the episode, Ragnar basically says, we're going to Paris, we're going to conquer it. This is going to be bigger than anything we've attempted before. It's well fortified, and we're gathering our forces. This is going to be our finest hour. Really excited, personally. And one other thing I have to address is Egbert really making his move against the Northmen. And Egbert, we've always known that he is really in it for primarily himself. And the fact that he has had this long-standing scheme, again, sort of similar to Ragnar, the fact that he has had this long-standing scheme for who knows how long against the Northmen, or not really the Northmen, but really he sees the Northmen as a means to an end, if this episode is any indication, because his son basically, instead of helping the Northmen settlers, he slaughters them and burns their homes. So Egbert acts all angry, and right away I said, okay, this scene is fairly enjoyable, but Linus Roche is really going over the top, because he's yelling at the top of his lungs, he's drooling, he's really going overboard, more so than we've ever seen any character go on this show before. And I'm thinking, okay, something about this doesn't seem quite right. So he says, all of you out! Arrest this man, and he points to several nobles who were involved in the conspiracy to, betray him and slaughter these Northmen. So he says, all of you out! I need to speak privately to my son. And basically, as soon as everyone's out, he says, thank you, my son. See, we both played our parts well. I mean, how could I have ever let the Northmen establish a settlement here? But thanks to them, I've rooted out the people who were disloyal to me, and I now have an excuse to get them out of my hair permanently. So yeah, Egbert really very much a schemer in the sense that he really had this very devious plan, and it didn't really matter how many Viking lives hung in the balance or were sacrificed to achieve his goal. He achieved it, and he did so very well, if I might add. So in regards to that, in regards to being a really good twist that I didn't see coming, this scene works. But in terms of, and I think what was left a little vague to the show, to the character's detriment, in fact, is does this mean that all of Egbert's supposed interest in other cultures was just fabricated? Because I actually think that would make him significantly less interesting. But then again, if he was really all that disinterested in other cultures, would he have had that room dedicated to the old Roman emperors and stories and histories, so that we saw in season 2? So hopefully we get a bit more light shined on that in the next episode. But overall, I thought the drama worked in this particular episode. I thought the characters were very compelling. Things aren't necessarily going well for the Vikings right now in terms of their morale, or at least not the primary characters, their morale. But yeah, really enjoying this show, this third season. It maintains the high standards that we've come to expect from Vikings at this point. And now that they are officially going to Paris, again, I'm very intrigued as to not only how they're going to pull off these supposedly large-scale action scenes that are supposedly going to be bigger than anything we've seen on this show before, but also how that is going to impact some of the characters, and how are some of these plans or theorized plans going to come to fruition. So yeah, really excited. Can't wait for the next one.